If we can get everyone on this planet aligned around ensuring that our young people understand how to use AI in a way that empowers them to not lose their critical thinking or their ability to act independently, and instead fuels them for creativity. As I said, create more, consume less. I see huge potential for what we as a species can accomplish here on Earth and looking to the future.
Welcome to the AI Grapple podcast. My name's Kate vanderVoort, founder of the AI Success Lab. This week on the AI Grapple, I am joined by Amy D. Love, founder of the global movement Discovering AI and author of the #1 best-selling Raising Entrepreneurs. A former Fortune 500 CMO and Harvard MBA, Amy is now on a mission to equip families, not just schools, to raise future-ready kids. We talk about why parents must lead the charge on AI literacy, how to build your own family AI game plan, and why create more, consume less is the mantra every household needs. If you've ever wondered how to teach your kids about AI or how to keep up with them, this one is for you. Let's dive right in. Hello, Amy, and welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's such a wonderful opportunity to have this conversation with you. Thanks for inviting me.
Why don't you start by giving us a bit of background? Who are you? Where have you come from? And how did you get into this AI journey?
Great question. A nice kind of foundational piece. I live in Silicon Valley, small little town called Los Gatos, California, right in the heart of Silicon Valley. And my background is, very traditional at the outset in terms of consumer products, but I went to business school at Harvard Business School, and right at the key juncture of time, moved out to Silicon Valley. I've had the chance to be both an entrepreneur as well as an executive, Fortune 500 corporate executive for technology companies, as well as run nonprofits over the course of my career. And really what brought me here today to be the founder of Discovering AI is I'm blessed to have a 12-year-old daughter, and I serve on the board of the Girl Scouts of Northern California. And as I look out and see the future horizon for this current generation, not only with my daughter, but for her fellow Girl Scouts and for the fellow students, there truly is a disconnect today about preparing our young people to thrive in the age of AI. And while schools will figure it out in time, if COVID globally taught us anything, it's that time doesn't wait. And so we have a real obligation with those of us that have experience and understanding and knowledge and tenure in tech and in environments where we seek to make a difference in the lives of others, to see that we have a responsibility to really help prepare this generation to be set up to thrive. And that's really what brought me to the forefront of founding Discovering AI and serving as this connection of what I call a trifecta between parents, schools, and students themselves.
I love that. I believe really passionately that everybody has a responsibility on helping everybody else navigate this massive transformation that we're going through, and particularly for our young people. So I love that you use that word responsibility, because I think it's something that we all need to take responsibility for. But you've described Discovering AI as an international movement. I've had a look at all of the amazing work that you're doing. So why do you see families and not just schools or policymakers as the front line of AI readiness? And what made that your focus?
When I think about where there is an opportunity to truly move quickly to prepare young people, and you look at the inherent infrastructure and confines that are set up in so many global systems today, it comes back down to the family unit. And that family unit is where young people really, truly first learn about their values and learn what it takes to actually thrive in whatever environment they're facing. And as you said, right now we're at a cusp of something we've never seen before. And that is the rate of speed upon which this new technology, AI, is changing everything associated with the way in which we can interact with the environment around us and what the potential opportunity is in the future. And I say that recognizing not everybody has yet seen that transformation, but there are pockets of tech um, acceleration all over the globe that see and understand what the power and the potential is for AI and are seeing and understanding how quickly this is going to move through existing systems and outdate them. And what we don't want to have happen is young people being left out of the opportunity to thrive because they're not being prepared for what will be a truly different future than any of us have experienced in the past.
It does feel some days a bit like we're frogs in boiling water, that it's sort of happening around us. And I think those of us that are in AI all day, every day, it's now just a common part of life. But as you say, I mean, there are still people that haven't had their first chat GPT moment or are not even familiar with what AI really means. Um,
If I
one of
build upon that in terms of what you're saying
the,
and your prior question, it's really a recognition that I like to give the analogy. Would you ever turn over the keys to your family vehicle to your child without giving them the opportunity to first pass their driver's permit, right? To prove that they understand the rules of the road and then put them in an environment where they're going to spend probably a year practicing before they actually finally go get their driver's license. And then once they get that driver's license, they come home. And probably as a family, you're going to have a conversation about, well, what are our family values in driving? Probably don't drink and drive, don't pick up strangers, do you know how to, change a tire? Yet we're turning over the keys to AI to students today well ahead of any knowledge or expertise for the vast majority of adults and parents without realizing the power for good as well as the power for harm that AI inherently has at its fingertips. And so that is why for Discovering AI, we really felt that the audience not yet being brought into the conversation is that of the parents and the importance of the parents working in conjunction with schools that are really limited by existing policy requirements and are not able to move as quickly as the rate of change that's happening with technology to ensure that the young people of on a global basis of this generation are not left behind and are in fact prepared because in 10 or 15 years hopefully the schools will have made the migration and the shifts that they needed to. But what happens to those young people today if they don't have those foundational pieces of understanding and ethics and understandings of how it can be used to be truly successful?
Yeah, and we can't wait 10 or 15 years. I mean, we did that with social media, and it took that long to get a handle on what social media means for our young people. And I know the US and Australia are a little different in that regard. In fact, one of the things that's quite different is we've got a social media ban for under 16-year-olds that comes into place in 4 weeks' time. And
Okay.
so all teenagers who are already on the social media are going to be locked out of social media. And that's been mandated by the government. There's huge fines for the social media platforms if they allow under 16-year-olds on their platforms. So we're at an interesting place here in Australia where we're trying to roll back technology for young people whilst also resourcing them and educating them on AI. Whereas I know the US, you've got a real focus on innovation and moving forward and kind of winning the AI race, if you like. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out for young people. But just to back up a little bit,
Yeah.
can you tell us a bit around discovering AI? What are some of the tangible things that you're doing within your organization to address some of these issues?
One of the key tenets of what we're doing within Discovering AI that really reaches out across all geographies across the globe is opening up the conversation and the dialogue, in particular with the parents, while still tying in the connection with the schools and the students. And that is around our family AI game plan. And it is in particular focused on ensuring that the families are having a conversation together about what does AI mean for them. And what's important about that is it recognizes that there is no right or wrong answer to how families choose to embrace AI. What is critical, though, is that the conversation is being opened up and the discussions are being held. And what I mean by that is oftentimes when I talk with parents still to this day, they think, well, it's really the school's responsibility to teach or train our students. Well, that was really the case when it was more of an industrialized education system where you needed to teach them to learn very basic pieces of knowledge, skill, be able to repeat back those facts to be able to show, true understanding of the historical impacts so that you could then apply that to future decision making. If now knowledge is universally accessible to anyone with access to broadband, it's no longer about imparting knowledge to the students. What we're really talking about is the need to develop skills in our students and in our young people that separate and create that distinction between what are the strengths of AI and what are those human traits that are truly unique. And so when we talk about the family AI game plan, it is helping parents first and foremost by understanding, does their school have a guideline or a policy? Do they understand it? And if they do, how are they approaching it? If they don't, what are they going to do about it? Then it also opens up a conversation and a dialogue around, how are we as a family currently using AI or not? And opening up that conversation of exploration to see where it is in our own lives. And again, it allows each family to make unique decisions for themselves. And then from there, it's really talking about as a family, what are the traits we want to develop in our young children? And when I say young children, we really, our vision is that every family through K through 16, that may be a US based definition, but it's through kindergarten through college, that through that entire journey, families need to have this family AI game plan so that there's a assured level of understanding and expectations. Because we're talking about how do you develop adaptability and resilience in kids, or critical thinking and problem solving, creativity and innovation, empathy and leadership, technical fluency and digital literacy, because it's really about lifelong learning now, as well as what we call entrepreneurial thinking or initiative. Because if we really think about what AI really is, right, it's a large language model that's a learning model. It's learned from the past. What's uniquely human is our ability to innovate the future. And so simply teaching our young people how to master historical context without the ability to innovate leaves us in an environment where we are advocating our ability to lead to that of what machines can present. And so that's why we really talk about this family AI game plan. You don't need a tech background to do this. It's about having a conversation. And as a family, you can decide that, hey, you know what? We don't really want to engage with AI as a family, but we do recognize we at least need to be aware of it. We need to know what's happening, what's changing. Or maybe we want to just toe dip. Maybe we want to just try experiencing, one new application that uses it and start to understand it. Or maybe we want to start really as a family, interacting once a week with what, one of the programs we offer is a thing called Mind Spark. It's a very simple family activity you could do over the weekend in 10, 15 minutes that really addresses bias, ethics, creativity. It opens up the conversation of a family to talk about, where does AI get it right? Where does it get it wrong? Where do we seem to have more knowledge versus greater insight? Where did AI spark our thinking? Where did it inhibit our thinking? Maybe they want to do that, or perhaps they want to go all in. And all in means really we're going to use it for school, for homework, for creating our family vacation plans. We're going to use it to create our new business plans. Any one of those directions are valid. It comes down to individual family values. But the critical component of what Discovering AI is seeking to do with this family AI game plan is creating an environment where every family has a conversation about it. Because we as parents, we've been historically trained to believe that we have the experience and then we'll share that experience knowledge with our children. Yet the reality is with AI, we're at best learning it with our children, if not having our children ahead of us and we're seeking to catch up. The one thing we really bring is that family values and those ethics and that understanding, that discernment that young minds don't yet have. That is something unique that we as parents bring to the equation. And that's where we say you can't just turn it over to the schools because the schools are being judged on a historical context of student development. And they haven't yet had the chance to make the transformation to what are the new set of skills young people are going to need today forward to thrive in the age of AI.
So, just back on the age of when we introduce AI, and I know everybody has a different opinion about this, but there's so much that's discussed in the media. There's so much research now around when to introduce devices, around how much screen time young people have. The reality is that in order to engage with AI, it requires screens, it requires that technology. And when you look at the research around brain development and all of those critical skills of creativity, etc., do you have a view on when's the right age to introduce AI to young people?
I would like to say our approach has been to talk about what's right for your family. And within your family, think about the implications of it. We also have a term we use, which is called create more, consume less, which is how do you use AI and technology to help you as a family create new pieces of knowledge, insight, or art or expression that allows you to develop those skill sets inside yourself without simply sitting back and scrolling and consuming. And I think that's where there's a big difference. And, I applaud Australia for its aggressive move around social media. California is trying to lead the United States with some much stronger parameters around social media use. And I'll be frank, there's nothing that pains me more than when I walk through a grocery store or take my daughter out to dinner and I see young people not engaging in a conversation with their family, but instead are on this device, where it's the perfect time when you're at the dinner table to have that creative exploration. Or as you're going down the aisle, talk about what do we want to have for dinner or how was your day at school. I realize parenting can be tough, but it's, a great phrase once shared with me, days can be long, years are very short. We have a very short window of time upon which to leave an indelible mark on our young people, our young children, to set them up to thrive. And so when we talk about create more, consume less, we're really talking about how do you use AI and technology to further your conversations, to further the dialogue, not create it as an environment to create a separation between humans.
I
And
love
in a
that
way, yeah,
reframe. If I can just say, I
yeah,
love that reframe of create more, consume less. Because I get asked all the time, is AI going to make us smarter or is it going to make us dumber? And really, that's up to us. That's a choice
yes.
that we get to make. If we just outsource what we do and consume what comes back and go and share that, and we outsource our job to AI, that's going to do nothing to increase our knowledge or our skills. But I really love that for kids. And I have a 9 and 11-year olds, and they, of course, have been exposed to AI given the work that I do. But we do image challenges where we'll throw an idea out and all three of us will be creating creating images on AI, and then we string together stories. And I think that's one of the easy ways, I guess, that parents in a fun way too can really focus in on the value of AI and teach some of those ethics and bias principles, or responsible use of AI, is by doing that creation process together. So I love that.
Absolutely. I don't know if you have ever played with a toy called story cubes, and there's 12 little story cubes. You throw them on the table and they come up with a certain image, and then you have to tell a story about it. We talk about that with our mind sparks, right? We're talking about take a photo of an image or an item in your house and ask AI to come up with a creative story about it, and then you do it as well, and you compare and you contrast, and so you start to get familiar with it, but you also start to learn where does it have limitations or not. Or most recently, we did one of create a family crest by telling AI a few things about your family. And each
Oh,
person
I
gets
love
to do it on their own. And then, I have a 12-year-old daughter. And then, what became very clear for us is AI could generalize, but it couldn't get to the heart of the emotion of what we felt made our family unique. And for our family, it was around being adventurous and about being entrepreneurial and about love and kindness. But yet, what my daughter and I chose to draw were examples in our crest of our national park adventures, and her selling Girl Scout cookies, and our dog named Sweetie, just even by the nature of her name. AI doesn't have that sort of backstory to go from the generalization down to the specifics. And it served as a great catalyst for conversation to understand what still is truly uniquely human, that AI literacy and that connection that you need and what it can bring forth. And that's where and how you can create more, consume less by having these sorts of conversations and dialogue that bring to the forefront to young people in a very tangible way about how AI can be used to make their lives better without losing who we are and our humanity itself.
So just to dive into that a little
Yeah.
bit deeper, because it's one of the things I still grapple with. It's certainly something my children grapple with. I'll tell a quick story before I ask you this question, but
Yeah.
I noticed that the quality of the birthday cards and the letters that, because my kids still write to their grandmothers and they exchange letters, which is lovely. But I noticed that the quality of what they were writing had changed and that they'd started using AI to write birthday cards, letters, which, I may do as an adult, but I don't want my children doing. And they were writing things like, you make such a significant difference on the planet. And I'm like, kid, you're 9 years old. They know that's not coming from you. But I think it's one of those things that parents, that I hear from parents especially, is the fear that AI will replace that real connection or the creativity or the critical thinking. So those things that do make us uniquely human. So how can AI be used to strengthen that? You were just starting to touch on that, but how does AI, or how can we use AI to strengthen those connections and relationships and that those really unique human qualities, I guess?
I think sometimes we have to ask the question of what is it that we really think AI is good at and is best designed to do? And what are we as humans with our own CPUs best designed to do and accomplish? And I share that from the standpoint of, you know, similar to your card example, my daughter's cards increased dramatically when she realized she could put into Google, how do I make an origami birthday card? And she all of a sudden started creating really unique birthday cards, handmade, that were truly meaningful. Yet, by the same token, as you said, that is where technology can provide access or insights to new ways of thinking about things, but then still allowing you as the individual to take on the responsibility of the actual creation of it. AI and Google are not going to, out of the machine itself, create this paper origami present box that she can put a gift card in. She still has to demonstrate the ability to create that. But she didn't know of that idea before she asked technology for the idea. Now,
Mm.
and certainly it didn't come from me. Pure creativity of that sort was not my strength growing up. So she is finding that she is expanding her knowledge and access to new ways to do and be creative in her expression by being able to ask either Google or AI for these ideas. But to your point, I think part of the role as parents is to say, yet you can't outsource your feelings. And the feelings are uniquely human. And this is where I think it's important to just, address to all parents and all adults and all kids on a global basis the importance of understanding of the real danger with AI bots that are designed to be young people's friends. And certainly, at least in the US, are seeing a lot of very high profile cases where the outcomes have not been in the best interest of young people. And in fact, these bots and these conversation bots have led to very tragic outcomes. And so this is part of the underscoring of the reality is we as parents have discernment and wisdom in our own experience and life and engagement that our young people don't yet have, that it's critical that we're having these conversations because we as parents aren't even aware of all the ways many kids are using technology and AI together today. And it's one of those things where we just can't bury our head in the sand and or say schools will take care of it because that's not happening. And
It's
so
such a
that's,
dilemma
yeah.
because I was interviewing someone recently, the CEO of the Smith family here in Australia, and they work with disadvantaged students around equitable access to digital products and to education around digital literacy. And he was saying that the statistics in their work show that more than 60% of young people have used or are using AI, whereas the parental adoption or usage rates are down at something like 36%. And so it's such, particularly in disadvantaged, in the more disadvantaged cohort. So it's such a dilemma when we have technology that's accelerating at breakneck speed that we just can't keep up with. We have young people who are diving into this technology and using it in all sorts of ways. We have parents who maybe are not familiar at all with the technology. We have schools that are, being slower to adopt just by the nature of the system that exists there. So from a safety guardrail perspective, and I know this is different, the EU, the US, Australia, we have very different approaches to the
Mm-hmm.
AI safety guardrails. How do you, or what are your thoughts around where that sits on the spectrum, I guess, of, EU Safety Act, really conservative, very strict in its regulation, through to a total focus on innovation and moving forward come hell or high water? Where do you think government, won't say which country that is,
Yeah.
where do you see government needs to sit in terms of regulation around this technology?
So I do feel it's difficult for countries to fully regulate innovation because they don't yet know what they need to regulate until it's actually developed and created. So by nature of that, regulations will always be behind the innovation curve that's happening. And so that's where I put the onus back on the families, that the families need to take the responsibility and the presumption of responsibility to have the conversation and the dialogue and be extremely intentional in their parenting because of the rate of change and what's happening. That is fundamental no matter, I believe, what country you reside in. Because at the end of the day, typically it's the parents who are authorizing and or buying the mobile devices. And the mobile devices today, while you might restrict social media access, it's probably not going to be a situation where you're restricting search access. And yet search access today is now fully integrated in with AI. And so the reality is I feel it is not a winning proposition. It might be a slowing proposition, but I don't feel it's a winning proposition to put the responsibility on regulators to determine the fundamental use and rights. I do believe that that is a family responsibility. Now, let me explain that a little bit further in that, as I said, California is coming out with some regulations that is hopefully going to go across the country. Australia is 16, EU is very stringent on social media. Why? Because, the reality is technology companies were focused on profitability. And with the technology companies focusing on profitability, safeguards and understanding how these advancements could be used for good versus evil were not fully understood. And I think core to that is, even in the concept around, um, chat bots that can talk to the elderly and reduce loneliness, the idea in and of itself is inherently good. Yet you have to build in the safeguards and the understanding and the regulations around how bad actors can come in and shift that. And it's the same thing not only for the elderly, but also for youth. And so when I look at this kind of structure, I feel we have a situation where companies are going to continue to race down the path for innovation. And it is an arms race for growth. It's an arms race for install user base. It's an arms race for talent. Then you have the schools as well as regulators. I'll put both of those in this camp over here that are always behind where the companies are. So they're always reacting because it's difficult to be proactive if you're not the ones innovating and knowing what's potential is there. So then it comes down to the parents and the family unit, more so than ever, taking on the responsibility of this understanding in this conversation. And I use the term to say it can be as simple as just changing a, decades long, centuries long way in which families would ask, did you get your homework done? Have you ever asked your kids, did they get their homework done? I have. Have you? Yes.
We do.
Okay. But guess what? In the age of AI, I'm having to retrain myself to realize that the question I need to ask is, how did you get your homework done? How did you get your homework done reveals so much more than did you get your homework done. When students can literally just take a photo of 15 Algebra 1 problems, upload it to ChatGPT or to Google Gemini or to Claude or to any of a number of photo math programs that are out there, and in under 30 seconds have a step-by-step answer for all of those questions with the final answer circled, and they're outside playing cricket or rugby or soccer or football or whatever it might be. And so that's why it really comes down to realizing that government and schools will always be playing catch up. The entities and the corporations themselves are always going to be pushing for innovation. And
I
the
have,
stake of
sorry.
the development of our children will be really reside with the parents and the guardians.
I have a vision of an education environment for our children, hopefully before mine graduate high school. So it's an environment where they don't have homework, they
Mm-hmm.
don't have assessments and exams, that there is real time monitoring, which some people will freak out about the term real time monitoring, but there's real time monitoring in the classrooms
Yeah.
that can see them demonstrating on a daily basis whether they are learning what they're learning, whether they can demonstrate that knowledge. My 11-year-old, who's about to go into year 7, first year of high school here in Australia, she has massive anxiety about exams. She's super bright, but you put her down in front of an exam or an assessment and her mind goes blank. She gets this fight or flight, wants to run. It just doesn't work for her in any way, shape, or form because she does poorly in exams and yet she knows the material. She knows what she's learning. And so for me, I think if we get it right, AI can really be a real time evaluator of skills and knowledge and capability as opposed to putting them on the spot and having a slice of time where they have to perform their knowledge. Do you think that's on our horizon?
I do think it differs by country from the standpoint of the level of centralization of control around how education is deployed in individual countries. And in some countries, there's very much a centralized center of power and Ministry of Education that can mandate learning and education through the system. And then there are others that are fully decentralized.
Isn't this
There's
an opportunity to shake all that up, though, and really redefine, I guess, our education system? Because we have a very centralised system here that is defined by the Department of Education, and they say how it needs to be. But I do truly hope that that AI presents the opportunity to
it would
transform how we educate and measure education, I guess, with our children.
I will share, I think the centralized education-based countries have a huge opportunity to leapfrog the decentralized countries in their development of their young people and their young people's ability to truly create value in the age of AI. And that if I really extrapolate, I think there is a real opportunity for a transfer of power through economic and academic excellence that can be translated into GDP. I'll take the US as an example of the flip side of that. We are highly decentralized. In fact, we have a president of the United States who's saying he is looking to abolish our Department of Education at the federal level, and has always had very little control anyway, all delegated down to our 50 states, but even more so than that, it's delegated down to individual school districts in this country. So every single school district has an opportunity to make a decision independent of their neighbors or of the state, other than the common core expectation of knowledge, to determine how to best deliver that. And so when I think about it, I'm just going to pull up this stat. There are 13,000 different school districts in the United States. Each school district gets to determine independently how education is delivered. And let me give you a few facts about that as well. If we even just take computer science as a barometer of the challenges facing decentralized countries in education. Computers have really been around since 1984 at the personal level. The year Apple Computer unveiled their 1984 ad for the personal computer, right? So we're talking 84, 40 something years ago. In the United States, only 60% of schools offer computer science as a class opportunity, and only 12 states in the United States require a student to graduate from high school with at least one class in computer science. 12 states out of 50. So while the US talks about innovation in a fully decentralized education system with a technology that is moving so fast, those countries that are able to shift their education quickly to empower their young people to thrive by using AI to meet them where they are in their development, to allow them to accelerate learning and growth in the subjects that they've mastered, yet help tutor them in those that they may be struggling in, with the expectation being simply the ability to prove or demonstrate proficiency rather than the ability to score a number on a test, are going to be those countries, in my mind, that will be the ones that are going to prepare their young people to thrive in the age of AI. If, and this is the one thing I'll say that I think US, Australia, India, many countries in the EU still do, is recognizing, though, that there is also the need. It's never just been about knowledge or the ability to do it. It's been about your ability to think innovatively, creatively, the ability to adapt, and the ability to lead others. So it will also be those 6 traits that I spoke about earlier that are going to be, I think, the saving grace for those countries that are not adopting quickly a shift in education. And those that are addressing a shift in education need to make sure they also incorporate those skill sets that are uniquely human. Because when we think about this and the progress of where we're going as a nation and where we're going as a world, you and I both talked about, we both have full-time employees that are located in countries outside of our location of residence, right? This is truly a global workforce now. And those individuals that will want to and are able to demonstrate those skill sets and the ability to access knowledge, companies are going to go to where the talent is.
Look, we could talk for a long time about all of this, Amy, and it's such important and valuable work that you're doing. If we imagine a world, just as we start to wrap up, if we
Yeah.
imagine a world where every family is using your family AI game plan, what kind of shift could we see in this generation? What's possible if we actually get this right?
What is possible if we get this right is we set the environment up where we are no longer limited by our own human capabilities to compute. And instead, we're empowered and fueled by the uniquely human ability to innovate and create and think about new ways we can solve global world issues, opportunities, and problems. And so, as simple as it may sound, starting with that family AI game plan is the start, because it's allowing us to have the right conversation about how do you use AI, not as a shortcut, yet rather as an enabler to ensure that our young people are growing and learning about how technology can open up windows of access and opportunity to knowledge and information that before was restricted by perhaps geography or socioeconomic status. Now, as long as you have access to a broadband, knowledge is universally accessible. So if we have everyone, K through 16 families, sit down and have this family AI game plan, it allows that discernment to come from the adults to establish the right values with the young people to use AI in a way which will in fact embolden and empower them to realize whatever they dream is possible is something they now have the access to the insights and the compute power of AI to see that come to fruition. And that to me is a really amazing environment to think about what's possible. You hear us talk about we'll solve the issue of cancer. We'll solve the issue of traveling to Mars. We'll solve the challenges of global warming. And as we leverage this each time, we as a species continue to build upon those dreams of what's possible as we conquer what we thought before wasn't achievable. So to me, if we can get everyone on this planet aligned around ensuring that our young people understand how to use AI in a way that empowers them to not lose their critical thinking or their ability to act independently, and instead fuels them for creativity. As I said, create more, consume less. I see huge potential for what we as a species can accomplish here on Earth, and looking to the future, what happens beyond our planet here. And that got deep quickly, but I truly do believe that.
Oh, I was going to say, sign me up. That's a future I want to be a part of. Amy, thank you so much for your time today. Now, I know I'm going to go looking for the Family AI game plan. How can people get the game plan, engage with your work, or connect with you?
Oh, thank you so much for asking. So they can get the Family AI game plan by going to our website, both discoveringai.org and discoveringai.com. You can access the Family AI game plan from either one of those websites. We have a whole bunch of free resources that are on our discoveringai.org website that are available to all families, regardless of location. And in addition to that, you can go to amazon.com to buy my 2 books, Raising Entrepreneurs, as well as Discovering AI, both of which talk about the 6 traits. Raising Entrepreneurs really sets kind of the details behind why we as a society need to make a shift and how we're approaching raising our young people. And then Discovering AI really is a parent's guide to preparing future-ready kids. It's really more of a narrative talking about trials and tribulations in my own life about trying to ensure that I'm preparing my daughter and other young people that I have the opportunity to interact with on a daily basis to help parents see how no tech degree is required, what you can do to create that environment for success for our young people.
Fantastic. Good stocking stuffers. Thank you so much for your time today, Amy. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
So have I. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for all that you do to bring this conversation to the forefront to your audience. This is such an important global conversation, and I so appreciate you asking me to be part of it.
Wonderful. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the AI Grapple. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and colleagues and subscribe on your favourite podcast platform. We would love to hear your thoughts, so reach out with any questions or comments about the show. Until next time, keep grappling with AI and stay curious.